All right. Thank you guys for showing up. I've been having technical difficulties today, so if this doesn't work, I'm not going to beat myself up too terribly bad. But I do have some important stuff that I want to share. And a lot of it is just research driven. So this is the first episode of Deep Astrology Research for Universal Astrology streams that I do live on Twitch. If you'd like to join the next... I do from 12 to 2, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I do long research streams that always have to do with astrology concepts and current activity that's going on in the world, meaning the Earth and the Sun and ourselves. So, I want to start by kind of rambling. Because that's what I do about a lot of this stuff, but also just to kind of get the lowdown on why this stuff matters. Particularly the solar stuff and how solar storms, flares, CMEs, and stuff turn into affecting us and Earth. So we're going to start with the sun. We're going to reference charts. We're going to look for the current activity, and we're going to look a lot at astro charts and AstroCartography charts over there on the top. So we've got the moon phase, and the moon phase right now is a day away from being new moon. So one really cool thing that a really good friend of mine has helped me acquire is a new webcam. But in installing my new webcam, I was able to get my old webcam to work. So I now have a desk cam that isn't super well lit. However, you can see cards and whatnot. So I can go like this and turn cards over. So we can see that tomorrow is going to be devoid, of course, moon. I'll bring this over to my side. That's what the card for tomorrow looks like. The void, it's the moon card. Whereas this is where we're at today, and it's for peace. So, just a cool feature that I can now keep going. So what I will do, I'll put today's here, tomorrow's there, and this is my amazing tarot deck. So I'm just going to pull a random card. And what I pulled is Seven of Cups. Leave that there. Becomes relevant, and we'll remember that I pulled it. So, kind of a cool... Oh, you guys didn't see any of that. I didn't transition over. So here's my desk cam. And so here's the peace card, here's tomorrow, and here's just a random tarot card that I pulled, Seven of Cups. So we'll see if that becomes relevant to our stream in any way. Okay. So we'll turn this, whoops, that one. Turn the desk cam off for now and see if we can get into the research. Okay, here we go, guys. So, there's a couple things that I want to show you at start. Now, I've watched Suspicious Observers, which is a channel by Ben Davidson and the Earthquake Prediction Network. He's just great, but he came out again with a new article about why this stuff matters and how it affects us physically. So I just want to bring up these two scientific articles. This one is the associations of geomagnetic storms, fast solar wind, and stream interaction regions with cardiovascular characteristics in patients with acute coronary syndrome. So basically what this science article is about is how the geomagnetic or Earth's magnetic field and its variations can affect our cardiac rhythms and systems, our heart. So this didn't surprise me. It was cool to see when it came out, when this came out, and I saw it a couple months ago when it was mentioned. And this is an article that came out of May to 2020. So this is rather new, but in esoteric research, in astrology research, in hermetic and esoteric studies, I found huge correlations between magnetic energy and the heart. And also I know from biology that the heart actually produces a magnetic field. Each and every person has a magnetic field. It's not just mumbo jumbo or stuff. I think there's a little bit of confusion in the mystic research between aura and the electric field. I think a little bit of just general things that aren't tied together as the same thing that should be. But the magnetic field, your heart puts off one, the earth has one, living system. So the other part of this is the other side. Electromagnetic field affects the voltage-dependent potassium channel. What this is saying is that, and this is a brand new article as well, July 2020, that's last month. Evidence supports the hypothesis of extremely low frequency electromagnetic fields can modulate voltage-gated channels. So voltage-gated potassium channels are thought to be involved in key physiological functions, including the regulation of T cells activation during the immune response. So potassium channels, if we just look this up real quick, potassium channels are the most widely distributed type of ion channel and are found in virtually all living organisms. They form potassium-selective pores and span cell membranes. Potassium channels are found in most cell types and control a wide variety of cell functions. So we can see how this is, related to our health. And by knowing a little bit more about this stuff, and you know what it means when there's a solar stuff happening, or you know what it means when the stuff occurs, maybe we can better regulate ourselves, not just watch the Weather Channel and go, oh, it's going to be hot today, cold today, because although it was very hot yesterday, there was a lot more activity going on over the weekend than probably most of us realized. And this is the proof of that. So this is the ISOL research. This is the Solar Atmospheric Imaging Assembly. So only scientists with certain degrees can add information to this, so we can really trust this as a really valid source to look for solar activity and study it. So what I did is, first thing this morning, I started getting on YouTube, seeing my channels that I follow, knowing that solar activity had been going on, including a CME and flares, which honestly, I ignored my phone most of the weekend and was busy for, so I didn't get very notifications, and if I did, I ignored them over the weekend. So when I popped on, I had quite a surprise because we have eruptions, we have up to a C-class flare, and we have a couple of CMEs that have occurred, starting from about late on the 15th through the 16th today. So sun is definitely waking up and doing its thing. So we have everything but a couple of things listed on this chart from solar activity from the 14th to the 18th. So a couple of these bigger ones are CME that happened on hour 14 of 7. Then we've got also a flare, this one, a C-class 2.1 that happened on hour 15, on the 15th, hour 6. And we have other CMEs too that happened on the 15th, hour 7, same time. These are all smaller flares. This is a different CME on the 15th on hour 23. Looks like it lasted until and stopped right at the 4th hour of the 16th time. We had several eruptions. So what I haven't done yet is look at the observatory and actually observe the sun. So let's do that together. And I'm just going to check on my stream and make sure that I'm still good to go. Cool. All right. So let's take a look at 193 angstroms first. Take a look. So this is starting from the 15th. So we should see a good majority of the activity from timestamp down here to the 15th. There's one of them. Holy crap. Did you see that? Right here. I didn't go back further. Starting over. And a ripple. Wow. That's so cool. And it just ripples across the whole thing afterward. And another more activity happens here after that too. I'm going to scan other areas, see what else. Corner. So one thing I'm definitely noticing is that the sun is like moving around a lot. You can really see how much movement and activity is happening. You know what's crazy to think about is this happens really quickly, that ripple effect across the surface of the sun, but think about how big the surface of the sun is. Okay, so let's see this in... That won't show it. Let's look at it in 94 angstrom. Where that happened. That is so cool. Running over. Wow. This happened on the 16th, hour 18. And keep that in mind and keep it paused there. On the other colors, we probably won't see as much as we did on those other. So there was a couple of CMEs. So let's see if we can see this from Lasso here. Oh man, this always... I don't have a good link for Lasso. But it's okay, because we still have this thing. So that CME happened on the 15th and 15th. This is an option. Oh, I don't want to download them. Looking for... Well, I know that's it. Hour 16. What we can't see from this stuff is the CMEs. I'm going to move on to what this means for us. So this is that Solarwind Prediction model, NOAA's. So what this is going to show us is what we can expect to see, or what they think that we should expect to see in the next couple of days, based on the information that these satellites and stuff do and say. So this is showing the sun in the center and satellites, and then Earth at the center. This is also showing Earth at the center. The top one is showing plasma density. The bottom one is showing radial velocity. See where we're at. Starting on the 15th. 17th, there's that CME. And it is not a straight shot at Earth, but it's definitely, like, gonna hit us. On the 19th and 20th, we're gonna be going through that storm. And I'm mostly watching the top one for this. I'm gonna watch the bottom one now. It comes out. So it looks like it's going to raise past it, but see how much stuff is coming, and then there's more of it too. Cuts it off. Because there's multiple CMEs that happen. Now, CMEs take a couple of days to get to us because they're so big. They're massive. I mean, that is like 10 times our size. And so it's massive. We're going to be just going through that, and you can imagine the impact that it's going to have on our field and where we're at, and how much energy is going to be plugged into our poles. So we also have coronal holes and wind and stuff coming in too. So I would definitely expect to see quite a bit of activity on the Earth over the next couple of days, and let alone, you know, I think it was last episode that I did on Friday, I was saying how, you know, we've got the new moon coming up, and it's always an interesting just part of things. So looked at the astrology earlier today, and one of the interesting factors was how the moon is aligned with Venus in the geocentric chart, and we've still got Mercury on the other side here apart from us. We've got Pluto might actually be able to be seen by Mercury. Oh yeah, totally. Okay. So what I'm doing right now is kind of lining these up by hand, just by eyesight, to see where Earth is lining up with some of these planets, to see if there's any primary stars playing a part going on right now. And I'm going to go back to the 15th where some of this stuff started, because so one of the interesting things that I've noted so far, whoa. Okay, I saw something funny. That Earth and Mars are lined up below the equator, or the celestial equator. Kind of interesting. Okay, so this is kind of what we're looking at up here. Now, lot to it. Another thing, since I covered the Schumann Resonance today, let's see what it's doing. See, it's calmed down since we were looking at it the other day. But I bet you, because of the solar activity that we had and whatnot, that we're gonna see another spike later this week. Another something to note was how we saw another large, super large, obtrusively large, ridiculously large lightning takeoff out of China. And that showed in yesterday's Suspicious Observers video. So we're gonna see if we can find that footage. And if you're not a follower of Suspicious, then definitely should. It's an amazing channel. I've learned a lot. So. Today's video. Well, here we go. That's lightning. Guys, that is friggin' lightning. I don't know if you've seen the other ones that have come out and whatnot, but we've had 10 record-breaking long lightning strikes happen, and when they have a one source connection point on the Earth like these have, they're like none other than discharges from the Earth. So this one occurred in China, and so we can see how all this is like playing into all the things. So an interesting thing to know, I pulled up the C-class solar event that happened on the 15th at hour 6 time. So this is what it looks like, and we can see how kind of perfectly some of these shapes are lining up and when they're occurring. So the other chart that I really want to bring up and look at and consider in our research today is that eruption, or whatever it was. So let's go back here. Happening at hour 6. Down. Sorry, the 16th. That looks like this one classified as an eruption. I'm on 8 hour 8 time cooldown of it. So we're gonna use this 1642. There we go. This is from 1555. Hour 16. Okay. So yeah, so we found it. This is 1642. 16. Okay. So, this is heliocentric. Keep that in mind. So, when this CME occurred, the first thing that I noticed and that I check is this is the moment that eruption happened. Look at where the sun and the moon are. 29 degrees conjunct in Capricorn. Think back to heliocentric. Sun, moon, Earth. That's what this is referring to. So we're looking at a sun-centered chart instead of an Earth-centered chart in our chart program here. Keep that in mind. And yes, Earth is definitely in regards to the sun, aligned to Capricorn. Go on constellation name and clickable. So here we go. Boop. Okay, so what else do we see? Back here. We've got fixed stars. Two. Let's okay. Nothing I'm gonna be too concerned about, other than Uranus, at this moment is conjunct to Salsadud, the star of mighty destiny. All right, Arabic moon mansion gives marital happiness, victory of soldiers, but prevents the execution of government. With the moon transiting here, which it's here, with the sun, with Venus, with Mars, with Uranus, occult interest, very unfavorable for women, sensitive, emotional. That word is weak-minded, easily influenced, led astray in early life, indiscreet actions, trouble through opposite sex, bad for marriage, poor, middle, and aged, accidental death. Okay, so not a good place for Uranus necessarily to be. Up here in Aries at 12 degrees, and what's kind of coming up on that is the North Node and Lilith. Now this is from a sun-centered view. So from a sun-centered, soul-centered perspective, not a geocentric or a human-centered perspective, but a soul, sun-centered perspective, Lilith and the North Node, the Lilith kind of acting as a shadow is kind of hiding the North Node. And the North Node is the direction that we want to go, the direction that we are facing. So imagine if you were facing your destiny, but you can't see what's before you. You'd be really tempted to look back and see, where's the North Node? And even back, you'd be tempted even to backtrack, because at least you can see the path in which where you came. Whereas Lilith is definitely hiding direction of the future. And I would say that that's definitely the case with everything that's going on in the world and the state of just all that's going on. I think that's definitely the case. Who's to know? Who's to say what's going to be coming in our near future, our collective? So I think that's really accurate. Also to note that in a sun perspective, it is Venus, Pisces, Chiron. And from the sun perspective, Mars is working on improvements for the entire collective. He may be having to swim through to get to the surface, but from a sun-centered view, the ultimate lesson for all inner heroes of all living essence has to do with this. In a sun-centered way is indicating the drive that this needs to be done for the collective. And Mars is meeting up to align with Neptune in Aquarius. Neptune is good to be in Aquarius. Neptune's fine with Aquarius. The water giver and life giver of new ideas, inspiration, and technology. And that's really what Mars is doing. And what really Mars's project isn't just swimming recklessly in the ocean. It is working on what we're really doing in real life is really working on important projects to benefit the entire collective. Are we going to make it? That's the real question. The question isn't, are you really going to make it and take your last breath before you get to the water or land like I joked about in my earlier episode. It's, can we actually do what we need to do for the collective? Straight up. Because the sun and the moon is truly in alignment with Capricorn energy. Capricorn is strict, hard. It's about responsibility. It's about getting to the top, being the best you can be, and being as prepared as possible for the long, hard road ahead. And Capricorn, mind you, is the 10th sign in the zodiac. It's not like it's this brand new thing like for Aries. Capricorn, sun and the moon, they're ready to get to the top. It doesn't matter to them who hasn't made it to the top with them. They're there. And that's what Capricorn is all about, is getting there. And then once you're there, embracing absoluteness of being present in the moment. And ruled by Saturn. Saturn is also here in a Capricorn energy with Jupiter. From a sun-centered perspective, a helio perspective, Saturn is totally at home in Capricorn. And is definitely ruling the regular day-to-day environment still in our Earth-centered chart, but even sun-centered. It's right there in where it place to be in Capricorn. So this is very much about time. It's very much about responsibility. It's very much about breaking out of whatever's complex or matrix that you think that you're living in to actually get through the projects and get them done, because they need to be done. They need to be done for everybody. Everybody needs to do them. Everybody needs to be contributing, working, and surviving to be able to say that the collective is going to move on. So that's what we're kind of looking at now. This, again, is the moment of that explosion. So keeping track of that, did anything happen? Now, the day before, there's a flare on the 15th at hour 6. One thing I'm going to keep my eye out when we look for any earthquakes activity is how quickly did anything happen, because solar flares can get here really quickly. Like light, just straight light from the sun, light photons from the sun can get here within 8 minutes. But that's traveling at the speed of light. Okay? The flares can get here within a couple of hours, 4 to 8. But CMEs, they're so big, they're so massive, and they have so much mass and so much stuff. And they're so much larger than our Earth itself. They can take days to get here. They don't always take days, but they usually take a couple of days, 2 to 3, to get here to the surface and presence of physical Earth. So that's how we can forecast some of those events. But flares, not so much. They get here a lot sooner, a lot quicker, so we might see some activity in this day when flares occur. So when this flare took effect on the 15th at hour 6, let's see if anything started to kind of occur in that realm. So look at earthquake, volcanoes. So the earliest that this is going to show me, the freaking course, is hour 12. So this 5.7 in Alaska at 245 kilometers is just before and at 4.8 at 200 China. The other thing that we can look at that has to do with the astrology, now this is heliocentric of the eruption at the cartography. So immediately I'm seeing this line up right here, and also this area right here is where some hurricane activity is going on presently. Has been. All right, this should. So there's been a storm being tracked over the weekend, 14th, 15th, 16th. So since the 14th, there's been a storm tracked here that we've had some forecasting for. If we take a look in here, 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 even in my state. Pressure. Yeah. Okay. Let's just watch it a second. Granted, this is just a couple hours ago. Eruption. But what I'm saying, there's definitely activity weather-wise in this area where the cartography is showing since that eruption. So I don't think that's, maybe not by accident, hotspot for Venus, Uranus. So that's another reason why I watch this, is like Uranus is always like the maker, the change maker. And it's the same line that goes down and across other side of Africa. Yeah. So again, same thing. This is where the storms have been happening. 15th. So storms that we're talking, when you think Uranus, you can immediately think Zeus. Begins to make sense. If you think about how, even just the first humans. Okay, so forget about the idea that we've been gifted in astrology. Let's just say I don't actually think this is the case, but let's just think about it logically for a second, that humans actually put together the concept of astrology that we've been using all the time. The only way that we would actually be able to do that with any amount of accuracy, without any guidance, without finding any evidence in the caves of astrology like we have, is that by tracking the actual movement of planets and doing math and all over this sake of time, we come up with these ideas of gods and stories, just like we do when we're writing a story or reading a book. Think about how involved in the world that you get when you read Harry Potter or something really, really good. You actually become engulfed in the world. That world is self-created, but it also has ties to reality into it, especially to the author who created that story, or who realized that story, remembered that story, or made it up, whatever it is that happens. So in a very real way, I think a lot of the pantheons and the gods, and I'm also, as like a disclaimer, I'm a DM master, Dungeons and Dragons as well, so like a little bit of nerdiness that happens. Not even gonna lie, but like I think the gods and the pantheons that we really believe in and have studied and attributed things to, particularly like Indian, well, the main religions of the world, I think a lot of the stories and the lore and the myths and the story, like, they have some sense to them, but they also have some fiction to them. And the only reason they have fiction to them is they have to actually use the imaginatory creative brain to understand the more logical realizations that we might have by studying or reading. But still, it takes the right and the left to do any project well. So when we think of Uranus and we think of Zeus and then we think of weather, it's not far-fetched to realize that it is probably actually the weather and the changes that influence the creative stories and the lore in the first place. So when we apply that kind of logic to look at this cartography chart and listen to a redhead chick with dreadlocks sitting here in saying how Uranus has something to do with weather, I don't think I'm really far off. Then also equally, for me to sit here and think that I think that Mars has something to do with volcanoes and fires and mantle and the core itself, and again, from Mars having a history from being worshipped as a volcano god, and a sun god in different religions. Again, I just don't think that my logic as an esoteric astrology is really that off from the original ideas of our forefathers who either gifted or created astrology in the very beginning of our lives, right? So, just immediately what I see as far as weather, that's where Uranus is sitting right in the middle of those lines, is weather and hurricane, things that we're watching, and then we see, where this is where I need to check for earthquake. Here's what I'm going to do for that, though, because on the 15th, hour 6, this is when we had that solar flare. Put this over heliocentric view, mostly for my own sake, and I can see that Earth is at 29 degrees Aries, about to enter Taurus. Taurus is definitely an Earth-ruled sign. So, Earth entering Earth. Woo! Then we also have this square over to the Sun and the Moon, who are conjunct at this time of this chart, and a trine to Jupiter and Pluto. Jupiter likes to expand and grow and make things bigger, and Pluto likes to pump power. And so I would expect explosive power to be coming to Earth, and it did. We're looking at a solar flare of a C 2.1. So this legitimately makes sense to see the moment. So 15th, hour 6. The other thing that we wanted to, actually, why I'm bringing this up is Cartography. So this is the moment of the flare. And remember that flares don't take very long to get here, within a couple of hours. So where would have this been striking at the time that the flare occurred? Here are the lines and where everything is. So let's bring up our earthquake program. We can keep in mind the elements up here too. Okay. So we need to expand this to include the last 3 days. That are 5, more. Whoa. These guys right here. Right here. So what lines are these? Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto. So Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto. We're definitely players right here. When did those occur though? On the 16th, hour 14. On the 15th, 6 sitting right now. 16th, hour 12. This is almost hour 12. We're sitting on hour 6 right now. This is probably the most likely of them out in the Fiji Islands. 4.3 or 18. Yeah, both of them. So 4.3s and 4.7. Fiji. So where this is actually lining up closer to is on the lines of the sun and the moon. They're also what come west over to the other side of South America. And not on the crest at this time. However, there was a 5.5 here, well, that we're seeing. Interesting stuff, guys. So there's a little bit about what's going on in the world right now. Yeah, so we can see those two are the areas where stuff is happening in. And again, if we look at the elemental chart here, we're definitely power to have 50 power of Earth, 50 heliocentric at this chart. And then for this one, again, heliocentric, we've got Earth at 51 points. So that's just really, leading to big activity. Whereas today we've got 53 water and we've got earthquake or hurricane all over the place for these areas in question out there in the middle. Not too surprising considering the kind of shaking that the entire Earth is getting on kind of all sides. And I definitely do expect larger quakes. Larger than these 5.1s next couple of days. And again, I also suspect that there will be quite a lot to cover this week. I'll have my work cut out for me as going. Right. Thanks for watching. Hopefully, now that it's not working, so hopefully